All right, good evening, nerds around the world. Welcome to episode 29 of the Nerds United One podcast. It is Paul English, joined as always by the OG team of Caleb and Chris. Gentlemen, good evening.
Yes. What's going on? What's going on, fellow nerds? What's up to you? How's everyone living?
We're living. All right, guys, so today is episode 3 of Bond Month. We're still in the middle of it. Today we are going to be talking about the 2 films done by Timothy Dalton and then the 4 films done by Pierce Brosnan. That is on the roster for today. So I'm excited to get to this. What about you guys?
Oh yeah,
Let's do it.
All right, let's jump right in with Timothy Dalton. I remember first watching when I first saw the Dalton films. I was like about 5-6 years ago. I remember not being too impressed with them, but when I started to learn more about James Bond, particularly how Ian Fleming portrayed him in the books as this like grizzled, worked out, typical guy who doesn't really want to do this shit anymore, I began to get a whole new appreciation for Dalton because I realized, I know, it's hard to focus after what the hell that happened. What the hell was that?
Go ahead.
Anyway, as I learned more about how Bond is in the book, I realized that Dalton actually came the closest to portraying Bond as he is in the books. Dalton is this burnt out, cynical guy. He doesn't like doing this anymore. He has no interest anymore. And as I speak, Max joins us. How you doing, Max?
Hello. I'm doing okay. I watched The Gunman and now I'm really tired because this movie was boring as fucking shit.
We've already jumped in. We're starting to talk about Timothy Dalton. So those were just my quick thoughts, like the Timothy Dalton era movies. He is the man who came the closest to portraying Bond the way he is in the books, and I have a whole new appreciation for that. Caleb, talk to me a little about Timothy Dalton. What's your impression of him?
Well, I just think the Dalton films, excuse me, they were a little darker. I mean, in my opinion, I don't know, but a little darker, a little more gritty. Like he was Daniel Craig, like that kind of Bond before Daniel. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he was that kind of Bond, and I don't think that we were ready for that kind of Bond. After the atrocity of the last Brosnan film that we'll talk about later, we were finally ready for that kind of Bond. We weren't ready for a darker, grittier kind of Bond yet. We just weren't.
Yeah.
But I think that Dalton played it, but again, like people didn't like it because it wasn't Sean Connery. It wasn't Roger Moore. It wasn't kind of like super campy. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was a totally different like a direction, and people were like, what? This isn't the Bond that we know, but it was the Bond that Ian Fleming wanted, Paul. That's
Exactly.
the closest, So it's funny that people rejected it because it wasn't their Bond, but in reality, it was the actual Bond, So,
Yes, indeed.
so they're.
I also think Dalton doesn't get a whole lot of credit because he got stuck playing Bond at a pretty bad time. It was the late 80s, AIDS awareness was at an all-time high. People were trying to avoid anything that had to do with sex, so Bond didn't get a whole lot of tail, and, well, gentlemen, let's be honest, Bond's a whore.
Yes.
There's just no other way of saying it. Bond's a whore. Like, he will fuck any girl he sees, so, I mean, it was, like, more like a half Bond, with, like, yeah. So I think Dalton gets a little bad rep for that, but, yeah, anyway, Chris, Timothy Dalton, that's who we're going with. He was the Bond that Ian Fleming created. What do you think about him?
I think he was a pretty good Bond. I believe he doesn't get a lot of the credit that people deserve because he played a different version of Bond. I mean, that was, of course, it's said to be the closest to how Ian Fleming originally portrayed the character. I mean, he definitely, he was kind of, I wouldn't say sullen, but he definitely had his moments where he was quite dull in the role. I'm not saying dull, but he was really, let's just say he was like in a little life in those parts. I mean, the public needed a new take on Bond. I mean, where do you go? You go back to Fleming. You know, and this, I think ISIS weren't really didn't really accept it. I think they didn't really buy him as Bond. You know, come on, this classically trained Shakespearean actor as Bond. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like.
Okay, while we wait for Chris to get his family under control, Max, you're up. Timothy Dalton. What do you think about him?
All right, I'm probably gonna drop after Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton, because I haven't seen any of Pierce Brosnan's movie. I didn't really care for them. Timothy Dalton is just really boring. I didn't like both of his movies. Living Daylights especially is so boring. Nothing happens. It's uninteresting. I don't know. It feels like it feels like Timothy Dalton wasn't really invested in both the roles. He wasn't a very good James Bond. Gotta be honest.
Well, I think a part of that may have to do, and we'll get to this later. Covered Broccoli, when he was casting, The Living Daylights, he actually wanted Pierce Brosnan to do it. It's just he couldn't do it because of his contract with Remington Steele. He was forbidden to take on the role of Bond. I mean, going in, Dalton knew he was just like a replacement, and that he wasn't going to last very long. That might have had something to do with it, but I don't know. Maybe be able to channel that aggression into making Bond seem like he was in the books. But anyway, we'll talk a little more about that as we get into talk about the movie. So let's talk about the movies. Let's start off with The Living Daylights. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this. I definitely got the sense of like the edge of James Bond the way he is in the books. If you actually read the Spy Who Loved Me book, Bond actually doesn't show up till halfway through the book, and he doesn't really have that grand an entry. You just kind of spot him at the hotel bar or anything. But yeah, I got that sense in The Living Daylight that this is a Bond who really does not care about his job anymore. He doesn't want to do it anymore. The only reason he's doing it is because he's getting thrust into this situation. I mean, the scene right at the beginning where, he violates the orders he was given. Someone, this guy is telling him, your orders were not due. Then Dalton's like, shove your orders. Then fires me, I'll thank him. Like, damn. Yeah, that's definitely a cynical Bond. And you can see where that comes from. Like, why is he so cynical? Well, having your wife get murdered on you might do something like that. But, so, yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't have a problem with the more cynical, burnt-out Bond. Especially because now that I know that that's how he is in the books, I had a whole new appreciation for it. And I thought he did a good job for it. Caleb, Living Daylights. Go.
Yeah. It's okay. I haven't seen this film in a long time now. I have seen every single Bond film.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't had time to rewatch them all, but from what I remember, probably, it's not that memorable. I mean, it's a good film. I do like the New Kind of Bond, because it has something. When you go from Roger Moore, who's God is, I think he's good as Bond.
Campy as hell.
I mean, I haven't been on the show in a few weeks, so I haven't been able to get my take. The other two Bonds, which I prefer, but Roger Moore was so campy for that you go from him to, Dalton, which is just like, what? It's just a totally different take. It's okay. I don't mind it.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible.
All right, Max, what about you?
I think he hates this movie.
Oh, God. Boring. That movie is so boring. I hate it. This is actually the only. I said both of his movies, but I never saw License to Kill because I wasn't interested.
Oh, dude.
Dalton.
License to Kill. I mean, we'll get to that later, but
yeah. So I'm just gonna give my thoughts on The Living Daylights, and I'm gonna go because the rest I haven't seen any of the Pierce Brosnan films. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm planning to see the movies that I didn't see this summer when I get caught up on all the 2015 movies that I missed. But like, yeah, The Living Daylights, boring, uninteresting, overlong, boring. I can't. Is the most okay. The worst Bond movie is Moonraker, but the most boring Bond movie is The Living Daylights. It's so boring.
Oh, whoa. I think all of us here would debate you on that and say Quantum of Solace is the worst one ever.
I haven't even seen it. I'm gonna watch it this summer. Probably
I'm praying for you because you're gonna need it.
I think I'm going to. Actually, I'm going to do a Star Wars marathon. I'm going to do a Daniel Craig Bond marathon. So yeah.
All right.
So, but all right. So I hated The Living Daylights. That's my thoughts on it. Yeah, I'm going to sign off because I haven't seen any of the other movies you guys are going to talk about. So I'm going to be a lot.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. See you.
All right. Bye. All right. Chris. Is everything under control? Or all the corralled everything, all that?
I mean, hopefully it is.
All right. So you had to stop right when you were in the middle of talking about Timothy Dalton. So why don't you finish your thoughts on him and then give me your thoughts on The Living Daylights?
Oh yeah, Timothy Dalton was definitely a decent Bond, and then he definitely brought a new. I mean, he definitely brought a new interpretation that we had not seen at that point. You know, I felt he wasn't able to, you know. I definitely thought he wasn't able to flex his muscles like SSS Bond, and of course he was dealt a very bad hand, especially like what happened with License to Kill, and with the whole legal problems they had, before they went back with GoldenEye in the mid-90s, But yeah, he was definitely like, and a very well. I mean, I thought he was a well-cast Bond. I mean, I know a lot of people are not big fans of this, but I thought he was like he did a solid interpretation.
Okay. So give me your thoughts on The Living Daylights.
Good, not great. It is a very complex story, and it's just it does have a lot of great intrigue to it. Of course, we have Bond trying to protect a defector from the Soviet Union. You got Solo from Raiders of the Lost Ark, the head of the KGB, trying killing British agents. It definitely does have a lot of twists. The Bond girl wasn't as interesting to me as other ones. I felt she wasn't. I thought she was kind of a weak link in the cast. What's her name? Mariam Dabia, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but yeah, she's not a character I wasn't really fond of her. But it did have its great moments. It did bring back some realism into the series. And I like the espionage part. It did show James Bond's darker side.
Yeah.
I just think that when I watched this, I had a huge I had a few days off from work last year, and I had a huge a Bond marathon. Going from the Roger Moore movies to this movie, it's a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Because if you're going in expecting the campy, over the top,
one-liner Bond,
Bond, all that, that's not what you're gonna get. You know what I'm saying? You're like, whoa, who's this guy? So I just think that has to factor in. It's just a shock to the system when you go from that to that.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to.
It's not great.
All right. Let's move on to License to Kill, and this is just me, but I thoroughly enjoyed this movie a lot. I could not believe how much of a badass, just a jerk badass that Bond could be until I saw License to Kill. Oh my God, this film was dark. It was edgy. It was beyond intense. This might be the most intense Bond movie I've ever seen. Just everything about it was just so steamed in themes of revenge and hatred. And just, wow, this is definitely the most far away from regular Bond that we're used to that you could possibly get. Holy jeez. But I love the storyline of it. The action sequences were top notch. The villain, Robert Davi, was an excellent villain. I know Chris is a huge Benicio del Toro fan. Benicio del Toro was actually in this movie. He was one of Robert Davi's top henchmen, or hench boys, because my God, he was a pretty young looking dude at that point. But yeah, unbelievable friggin' movie. I loved it immensely. like I said, very dark, intense, but very, very well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Caleb, License to Kill. What did you think?
Great. Much better than the Living Daylights. I agree with everything you said, but if this movie came out today, it would be a smash hit.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's that good. I mean, it's really good, but like you said, it came out in a really bad time frame. You know, like this was one like at its lowest, you know, and it's really sad. I've seen people hate on the Dalton movies, and they haven't even seen them. They just think that era for Bond, you know, you know. His movies are really good, and this one is fantastic. I like it, but I love the villain, I love the story, and it's dark and gritty. It's great. And we had never seen this movie before, you know. It's just, I loved it. Yeah. Good.
All right. Chris, License to Kill. What did you think about it?
Well, this seems like well, I'm with you. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good Bond. I mean, it definitely had it definitely it's a very unconventional Bond. I mean, very much like more violent than than the previous films in the past. It does have some very shocking moments to it. Even when you go like, it's like you're like, I can't believe they actually did that. And then Dalton, I mean, he still is like, he plays the iciest and most edgiest and darkest Bond at that point, and the stunts were really like fantastic,
Yeah.
And I thought, Robert Davi as the villain was pretty like he was a hardcore bastard in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yes, definitely. And you see and of course when they did the Felix Leiter,
oh man,
Jesus, it's like. Jesus, I can't believe, what happened with that, But yeah, the Bond girls were not, the second time, they're not, interesting characters to me. They're sort of throwaway characters, but this is like, this is definitely like a more exciting venture than the previous, movie. And it dealt with a very bad hand that year because it got trampled on by bigger movie scenes like a bunch of high budget movie sequels, Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, Batman. Yeah. It was definitely not a good year for Bond.
Well, getting back to what you were saying about how the Bond girl were not an interesting character, I think it goes back to like what I was talking about earlier. How these Bond films, the Dalton era, came out during like the height of AIDS awareness and. Sex was considered a very bad taboo. You can't talk about it. You can't show it at all. So, I mean, the Bond girls couldn't be like their usual interesting, sexy selves and Bond couldn't be shown having sex with them because, sex is bad. It's the AIDS epidemic, all-time high, blah, blah, blah. Bond's a whore. Don't forget that. Bond's a whore. Don't ever forget it.
Oh, my goodness.
I think that might have had something to do with it. All right, so the Dalton era did not last very long. Only 2 seasons, only 2 episodes, and we had a 6-year gap. People, I guess, for a while thought maybe Bond was gone, but Pierce Brosnan became available. As I mentioned earlier, they wanted him at first. He couldn't do it because of Remington Steele, but he was available at last, and Bond came back, I might be able to say with a vengeance, maybe not, but not with a vengeance, but he came back strong in 1995's GoldenEye. I freaking love this movie. Solid storyline. Sean Bean plays an incredible villain. A absolutely freaking brilliant named Bond girl in Onatopp. I mean, you gotta love that name. Onatopp. That is awesome. This is the first appearance of Judi Dench as M. She's a new M, our first female M. Everything about it, I loved it. I thought the plot line was great. The action sequences were much improved over some of the older ones. just an incredible movie all around, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Chris, I want to start with you on this one. GoldenEye, give me your thoughts on it.
Whew. What's there not to love about GoldenEye? Oh my goodness! Pierce Brosnan's debut as 007, man. He's just like it starts off with he starts off solidly. I mean, it's just like he starts off well, man. It's just like I love GoldenEye. I was intrigued with the plot. You know, I mean, there's just plenty of exotic locations that there are in a Bond film to go into. I mean, I thought it was very imaginative. You know, I liked Bond girls in this movie. They were really feisty. You know, independent. Individuals in this flick, man. It's just like it's classic Bond right here. You know, with the snappy one-liners, and the high and the fun, the fun action, exciting action adventure that this series is known for. Brosnan, he's like, he's just like you can see, yeah, like one of the best guys to play this character. He has the ferocity of Connery and the wit and charm of Roger Moore, man. Just like you can't get anybody better than him to play this part. GoldenEye is just like fucking awesome, man. It's just, I love this. I love this series. I mean, I love this movie.
Yeah. You brought up the snappy one-liner. I think GoldenEye probably has my favorite one-liner in Bond history. It's like after he kills Onatopp, when she gets squeezed to death on that rope, Bond just kind of looks at her and is like, "She always did enjoy a good squeeze."
I mean, this movie is one of the reasons I love this series. It's just like it has so many good elements to it. Oh my god.
One thing I forgot to bring up when we were talking about the License to Kill, that was actually the first PG-13 rated Bond film, and they've been PG-13 ever since. So my apologies, I forgot to bring that up. Caleb, GoldenEye, what did you think of it?
I mean, Pierce Brosnan is my Bond, Paul. I mean, he's the Bond that I grew up with, Paul.
Same here.
I mean, I was born in '89. That's the Bond that I knew. And I love this movie. I mean, Sean Bean as a double. I mean, he's up there with Goldfinger as my favorite. My favorite Bond villain. It's so good. I mean, he had the Bond girl. Oh, I forgot to mention my favorite Bond girl, the original, the Pussy Galore. You can't ever. That's the best name ever. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. But anyway, love this movie. Love the plot. Love the action. Everything about it. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, and it was a personal movie, Paul. Because he was fighting, Agent, and that was something that was new. And I mean, it was really cool. I mean, I really love this movie. So.
All right, let's move on to Tomorrow Never Dies. And while not as good as GoldenEye, I did think the big thing that I really, really enjoyed about this movie was Jonathan Pryce as the villain. I thoroughly enjoyed Jonathan Pryce in this movie. I thought he was hands down the best part of Tomorrow Never Dies. Brosnan still does a good job. Bond girl's very interesting. I like the Bond girl in this film. Solid movie. I have nothing bad to say about Tomorrow Never Dies. I enjoyed it. Chris, what about you? Tomorrow Never Dies.
Well, it's okay. It's not as good as GoldenEye.
No.
It's definitely not as good. I feel it's a bit, not sluggish. I feel it's a bit disjointed in some parts. I feel, it's lacking a bit in GoldenEye. I didn't really like Terry Hatcher as Bond's former girlfriend. I did like Michelle Yeoh as Bond. I thought she was a sexy thing. Oh my god.
Oh yes.
Yes, absolutely. And fine too. Fierce creature. But I thought it was entertaining. It did have some faults to it. It seemed a little bit flat in some areas.
Okay.
But I thought it does have it lacks a little bit of energy, but I thought it was an okay piece, and it wasn't like it was okay. It's not spectacular. It's not as good as Golden.
All right. Caleb, what about you? Tomorrow Never Dies.
I mean, it's okay. But, I mean, coming off the high of GoldenEye, I mean, I don't think it was ever going to reach that. I mean, because like GoldenEye was such an amazing movie that it's hard to top that. I mean, I think it's okay. I mean, some things about it I like, some things I didn't really like. I just think that it was, coming off the success of GoldenEye. I mean, it was hard to like. It was going to be hard to make something that was as good as that. So, but it was still a really solid movie.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to The World Is Not Enough. It was okay.
Yeah, I think all of us can agree, Paul, that this one was just okay.
Yeah, it was just okay. I mean, it was okay story. The action was still decent. Like, I do have to get this one out of the way. I think, and it's kind of hard for me to say, but I'd have to relook at these again. But I think Electra King might be the hottest blonde girl of them all. I think so. Ooh, man, it's that accent of hers. I think it's the accent that does it for me. My God, but aside from that, it was okay. Caleb, The World Is Not Enough. Go.
It was okay. I mean, it's not great, but you know what? It was. Anytime I see Bond on the screen, it's great, except for one movie, which right next week we're going to talk about. I don't know. It was just. I mean, it's unforgettable. I mean, it's just whatever. It was just okay. I mean, I don't really have much to say. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Chris, World Is Not Enough.
I wish I can like this movie, but I don't. I really don't enjoy it. I thought the Bond girls were not interesting. Don't get me started on Denise Richards as Christmas Jones. Oh my God. It was like yawn. Oh my God. Yeah, she may be hot, but hell, she doesn't belong in the Bond movie. She doesn't belong in the Bond movie. Not one bit. And this is what also there's one thing you know, but this is the final appearance of Desmond Llewellyn as Q in the series.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and also like the action sequences, they were pretty well done, but like the part was convoluted, and I think it was tired and a lot, and it was out of gas. It's just like it's not a well done Bond. It's not a well done movie period.
All right, let's move on to the next one, and it's notable in the sense that this came out on the 40th anniversary of James Bond. James Bond was celebrating its 40th anniversary in 2002. So you would think they were going to try to pull out all the stops, make an awesome movie. We got Die Another Day. So, I mean, I think Halle Berry, seeing them pay tribute to Dr. No, the classic bikini coming out of the water thing. I mean, that was nice. Whatever, nice little homage to the original.
Atrocious.
There's really nothing good to say about it. It wasn't a very particularly enjoyable film. Yeah, I got nothing to say about it. Caleb, to Die Another Day, I got nothing to say about it. What about you?
It fucking sucked. So this movie so much. When I saw it as a kid, I actually liked it. Watching it again, I was like, this movie is atrocious. This movie is so bad. Halle Berry, I mean, oh my God. And you know what? You rip off an amazing scene in the past Bonds by having her come out of the water like that, and you manage to screw that up. It just Halle Berry. Why? No, I mean, And who was the girl that played Miranda? Oh,
I really wanted to be a Bond girl.
Because she was so forgettable. I mean, it was so just atrocious and bad. I mean, the acting was horrible. The plot was so stupid.
Not to mention the one-liners were pretty lame.
The giant laser cannon gun thing. I mean, really? I mean, oh my God, it was just so bad. I hate this movie so much. It's fucking terrible. Like, I thought that James Bond was dead after this movie. Thank God for Daniel Craig.
Yes.
Yeah, this movie fucking sucks. It's the worst Bond by far.
Chris, what about you?
Oh, die another day. How the fuck can they come? How the fuck can they come out with something like this? Is the plot is stupid?
GoldenEye to this. You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the plot is stupid. You know, it's lame. It is cliche. Halle Berry, as sexy as she is, especially when the underwater scene, a little too much copying of the imagery of not copying. It's a little bit too much of the imagery of the scene it was paying homage to, and that's for Ursula Andress coming out of the water scene from the first one. It relied a little bit too heavily on gadgets. With the Halle Berry character, she's forgettable, cliched, love interest, and like I said, it relied too much on gadgets. There's too on special effects. There's way too much computer generated imagery, and
they weren't very good either.
Huh? Say that again.
They weren't very good either. Like the CGI in this movie sucked.
Yes. And what the fuck was up with that invisible car?
Oh my God.
What was up with that? It was like, seriously, it's like, has he lost his mind? And he's going tsunami surfing. It's like, huh? What is it? Is this like it's more like a comic thriller than it is an exciting, suspenseful espionage movie. This movie flat out sucks. Oh, it's so loud. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and they pull off this giant cock tease at the very end. Like, I have long believed that Moneypenny is the only girl that Bond genuinely cares for, and that's why he hasn't fucked her at all, because he genuinely cares about her. And so you had that scene at the end where it looks like they're getting together, and it turns out to be that that holographic training glasses. I'm like, oh, you fuckers!
Yeah, bullshit.
Oh, pissed me off.
The fuck.
How do you go from GoldenEye to this movie? I mean, it doesn't even make sense.
Like I said, I think they were just. I think they were desperate to put out a film that year because it was the 40th anniversary, and holy shit, that thing was pissing me off.
Oh God.
Oh my God, it's so bad. I mean,
all right.
And you know what? I thought Pierce Brosnan was a good Bond. I mean, it was just.
He got stuck in some bad movies.
I mean, Paulie, it's just like when you go out on such a bad movie, if you think like Christopher Reeve, him going out on Superman 4, and Pierce Brosnan going out on Die Another Day, it's like, oh my God, but it is what it is, I guess,
Yeah.
They were completely tired at this point. It's like they were running out of ideas.
I think there's a certain shelf life on Bond. It's I think if you do it, I mean, there hasn't been, because even with Daniel Craig, who we'll talk about next week, he's got a stinker there, one of his films, the second one they did, that was a stinker. I mean, it's hard to make great, amazing Bond films every time out, And I just think that you run out of gas eventually, when you have one certain actor doing a role so many times in a row.
Well, I think another factor of that may have something to do with the fact that Cupboard Broccoli passed away in 96, 97. So maybe without his leadership, the franchise just kind of fell apart at that point.
Yeah.
Well, it got back in 2006.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it did. And
got
we
it back
will.
in a big way.
It did, and we will talk about that next week as we wrap up Bond month. But until then, that's going to take and conclude episode 3. I would like to thank all my guests for joining me today. I'd like to thank Max for being here. Chris, it was a pleasure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love talking this stuff with you, man. You and Caleb, this is like really have a lot of fun talking to you about these things, man.
Yes, indeed. And Caleb, as always, my friend, it's a pleasure.
Absolutely, guys. I want you guys to be on the lookout. Hopefully, me and Paul can find some time this week to do an Ant-Man review. Both of us have seen it. Chris hasn't seen it. If we don't have time, then we'll get to it next next week's show. And also, guys, don't forget, since next week is the last show of the month, we will be doing collection updates for everything that we got in this month.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, guys. So that'll wrap up episode 3. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night.